What do you think of when you hear medieval tavern? A cozy, fire-lit room, a barmaid with rosy cheeks, and tankards of frothy ale, right? Forget it. That's a fantasy. It's a lie sold to us by every fantasy book and movie ever made. The reality was colder, darker, and a hell of a lot more dangerous. You think your favorite local pub is a bit grungy? A medieval tavern was a petri dish of filth, a symphony of stenches, and a constant gamble with your life. You had a better chance of getting a stomach bug than getting a decent pint. So why did people go? Did they actually enjoy sharing a bench with a man who hadn't washed in a month while drinking something that might just be spoiled? Let's stop pretending and find out what was really happening in those dark, smoke-filled rooms. This is not a fairy tale. This is the real grimy truth of a medieval English tavern in winter. The hearth, the very heart of the medieval tavern, was a ravenous beast, and firewood was a costly mistress. As winter deepened, the supply of good dry timber dwindled, and its price soared beyond the reach of most tavern keepers. To keep the precious, life-giving fire from dying out, a tavern owner would resort to cheaper, more readily available fuels. Peat, a dense and earthy substance dug from bogs, was a slow-burning wonder, providing a low, smoldering heat that could last for hours. But it was the use of dried dung cakes, often collected from the stables of the village or the nearby fields, that truly defined the winter tavern. These cakes, when properly dried, burned with a remarkable efficiency. They were a cheap, sustainable, and readily available source of energy, but this desperate practicality came at a price. The slow, acrid smoke from these fuels was pungent and heavy, filling the air with a unique, earthy smell that was a defining characteristic of the winter tavern. This wasn't the clean, woody scent of a modern fireplace. It was a powerful, organic aroma that clung to clothing and hair, a constant reminder of the fight for survival against the cold. The daily task of tending to the fire, of adding a new cake of dung or a chunk of peat, was a ritual of survival, a constant effort to hold the darkness and the cold at bay with the most basic of resources. The collection and preparation of these fuels was a task in itself, often performed by the tavern owner's family. Peat was cut from the ground and stacked to dry, a labor-intensive process that had to be completed before the winter rains made the ground too soft. Dung cakes were formed by hand and left in the sun to cure, a free but time-consuming source of fuel. This reliance on non-traditional fuels was a grim but necessary reality, and the pervasive smell of their smoke became a hallmark of the winter season. It was a smell that signaled warmth and life, a comforting but stark reminder of the lengths to which people had to go just to stay alive. The hearth fire, flickering with the low, slow-burning glow of these fuels, was more than a source of heat. It was a symbol of hope and persistence in the face of a brutal, unforgiving winter. The physical reality of living with these fuels was a constant presence. The tavern keeper's hands were stained with peat and soil, and the scent of the dung fires became an indelible part of their being. For patrons, the smell was a sensory cue, a signal that they had arrived at a place of warmth and safety. It was a scent that spoke of raw necessity, a world where every resource had to be carefully managed and utilized. The fire itself was not a roaring inferno, but a gentle, steady presence, a low flicker that provided just enough light to see by and just enough warmth to keep from freezing. The slow burn of the peat and dung meant that the fire could be left for hours without fear of it dying, a practical necessity for the long, dark winter nights. The ritual of gathering and burning these fuels was a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of the people, a quiet, daily act of defiance against the cold. In a world without organized postal services, the tavern served as the de facto communication hub for the entire community. The innkeeper, a respected and trusted figure, was a living postbox. A traveling messenger, weary from a long, cold journey, would leave a sealed letter or a verbal message with the tavern keeper, who would then be responsible for passing it on to the intended recipient. This was a vital lifeline during the isolated winter months, when roads were often impassable and travel was treacherous. For many, the tavern was the only place to hear news of the outside world, of births and deaths, of battles fought and kings crowned. The casual gossip and rumors exchanged over a tankard of ale were as important as the official messages, providing a crucial link between the isolated village and the wider world. The tavern keeper's memory was a public record, and their ability to keep track of messages and their intended recipients was a testament to their importance in the social fabric of the community. It was a position of great trust and responsibility, and a good tavern keeper's reputation rested on their ability to deliver a message faithfully, a small but vital piece of the winter survival puzzle. The physical exchange of messages was a solemn, serious affair. A messenger, often a young boy or a weary soldier, would enter the tavern, their face red and chapped from the cold. They would hand the letter to the innkeeper with a few words, and the innkeeper would carefully store it in a dry, safe place until the recipient arrived. The receipt of a message could be a momentous occasion, bringing news of a loved one or a directive from a distant lord. The tavern's role as a communication hub was a testament to the fact that, despite the isolation of winter, people were still connected to a wider network. It was a place where information flowed, a warm eddy in a cold, unforgiving river. The tavern was not just a place of ale and food, it was a nexus of information, a vital artery of communication that ensured the survival of the community's social and economic life. The innkeeper's post was a precarious and unregulated system, one that relied entirely on personal trust and an eidetic memory. Messages weren't just left, they were entrusted. A messenger, having braved the icy roads, would seek out the hosteler and, over a restorative pint of ale, would pass on a sealed parchment or, just as often, a whispered verbal report. The innkeeper would then be tasked with a delicate dance of discretion and delivery. They had to remember not only the intended recipient, but also the nuances of the message. Was it urgent? Was it confidential? Did it require a swift reply? The weight of this responsibility was immense. A delayed message could mean a lost business opportunity, a missed family event, or, in the case of a feudal lord, a missed order that could have dire consequences. The innkeeper's reputation as a reliable and trustworthy individual was their most valuable asset, more so than their ale or their hearth. This informal postal service was a testament to the ingenuity of the people and their ability to adapt to a world without formal infrastructure. It was a fragile but functional system, and the tavern keeper was the linchpin that held it all together. The tavern, therefore, was not merely a physical shelter from the cold, but a hub of social survival, a place where the vital threads of community were maintained and strengthened even in the darkest, most isolated months of the year. The casual hum of conversation, the gossip and rumors, served to fill in the gaps between the official messages, painting a living picture of the world outside, a world that was often only accessible through the tavern's smoky, warm embrace. The fight for warmth came with an unseen, deadly enemy. The tavern's reliance on low-quality, slow-burning fuels like dung and peat, combined with a desperate need to keep the heat in, created a perfect storm for carbon monoxide poisoning. The smoke hole in the ceiling, often the only form of ventilation, was easily blocked by snow or ice, trapping the invisible, odorless gas inside the tightly packed room. In the absence of any knowledge of modern chemistry, the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning were a complete mystery. A person who fell unconscious was not seen as a victim of a toxic gas. They were simply seen as having drunk too much ale, or perhaps having fallen under the spell of some dark magic. The silent killer would claim its victims in their sleep, often leaving them in a seemingly peaceful state. This daily unrecognized threat was a terrifying reality of winter survival in a medieval tavern, adding a layer of unseen danger to an already perilous environment. The fear of this unknown affliction, a feeling that something could simply take you in your sleep, added to the pervasive sense of dread that defined the winter season. The slow, insidious nature of the gas made it all the more terrifying. Patrons would feel a headache or a wave of nausea, symptoms that were easily dismissed as the effects of too much ale. The heavy, smoky air of the tavern, a welcome sign of warmth to the patrons, was in fact a harbinger of death. The innkeeper, trying to be a good host, would keep the room as tightly sealed as possible, unknowingly sealing the fate of some of their guests. The deaths that resulted from this unseen poison were a grim mystery, often attributed to divine judgment or a curse. The medieval mind had no way of understanding a silent killer that could steal your life as you slept, making the warmth and comfort of the tavern a deadly gamble. The very act of seeking shelter could, in a terrible irony, be the thing that killed you. The tragic ignorance surrounding carbon monoxide was a constant, unspoken shadow hanging over every tavern. The symptoms were so subtle and so easily misattributed that even the most observant innkeeper was helpless. A sudden, deep fatigue, a throbbing pain in the temples, a bout of dizziness, these were simply the tolls of a hard day's work and a night's drinking. The medieval psyche, accustomed to explaining the unexplainable with folklore and superstition, had no other frame of reference. A person who died in their sleep was a person who had simply been taken. The communal nature of the tavern, meant to be a source of safety and warmth, was what made it so lethal. The shared body heat in the closed space that so effectively kept the cold out also served to concentrate the poison, turning a comforting haven into a deadly gas chamber. The silent, peaceful deaths of these tavern patrons were a constant, grim reminder that even in their attempts to outwit the winter, they were still at the mercy of forces they couldn't possibly comprehend. The tavern was not just a place of pleasure and companionship, it was a deadly lottery where every night was a spin of the wheel. The fatal irony of the tavern as a refuge was a grim reality. The same smoky air that offered the promise of warmth was laden with a poison no one could see or smell. The deaths, when they occurred, were often a source of quiet horror and whispered theories. Was it a vengeful spirit, a curse from a rival? Or had the unfortunate souls simply met their time, a victim of God's will? The innkeeper, far from being a murderer, was an unwitting accomplice, their desire to keep their patrons warm in the brutal cold, leading to a tragic end. The tavern, a place of life and conviviality, was also a place of sudden, inexplicable death, a terrifying paradox that was a constant part of the medieval winter experience. The patrons of the tavern, in their search for warmth and community, were unknowingly playing a game of chance with their lives as the stakes. The winter was a time of long, dark nights and profound isolation, a reality that took a heavy psychological toll on the populace. To combat this, communal celebrations were a crucial part of winter survival, and the tavern was their undisputed epicenter. Festivals like Twelfth Night, a raucous celebration marking the end of the Christmas season, were held in the warm, smoky confines of the local tavern. These events were a time of feasting, singing, and dancing, a brief but intense escape from the harsh reality of winter. The communal singing of carols and the telling of tall tales provided a powerful sense of camaraderie and shared purpose. The laughter and the music were a defiant roar against the cold and the darkness, a temporary victory over the pervasive misery of the season. These festivals were not just for entertainment. They were a vital psychological survival mechanism, reminding the people that they were not alone in their struggle. The warmth of the fire, the shared ale, and the collective noise of the celebration all served to create a bubble of humanity against the overwhelming, isolating cold. The atmosphere during these festivals was electric. People who had spent weeks in the cold isolation of their homes would pack into the tavern, their faces flushed from the heat in the ale. The air, thick with the smell of roasting meat and spices, was alive with the sound of music from a lone minstrel or the collective singing of the crowd. These were moments of pure, unadulterated joy, a brief reprieve from the struggle of winter. The communal feasting, where food was shared and drink flowed freely, was an act of solidarity. The stories told and the songs sung were a way of reaffirming their shared identity and history, a powerful reminder that they were a community and they would endure. The tavern on these nights was not just a building, it was the spiritual heart of the village, a place where people could come together and remember what it meant to be alive. The energy of a winter festival in a medieval tavern was a force of nature in itself. It was a place where social hierarchies were temporarily blurred by the communal joy. The lord of the manor might find himself sharing a bench and a song with a common peasant, a brief, fleeting moment of equality in a rigidly structured world. The festivities were a sanctioned chaos, a release valve for the pent-up anxieties and hardships of the long winter. The feasting, A rare occasion of plenty in a time of scarcity was a vital part of the celebration. A whole roasted pig, a bounty of bread and cheese, and an endless flow of ale were a powerful symbol of defiance against the hunger and deprivation of the season. The tavern on these nights was transformed from a simple refuge into a vibrant, living organism, a testament to the human spirit's ability to find light and joy, even in the darkest of times. These festivals were not just about survival of the body, but about the survival of the soul. The tavern on these special nights was a place of joyous abandon. The cold, the hunger, and the fear of the long winter were all pushed to the background, replaced by the collective warmth of humanity. The singing, a powerful and unified voice, was a defiant statement against the overwhelming power of the elements. The feasting, a rare moment of plenty, was a physical and psychological act of solidarity, a powerful reminder that they were a community and they would endure. The tavern on these nights was not just a building, it was the spiritual heart of the village, a place where people could come together and remember what it meant to be alive. It was a place where the human spirit could triumph over the darkness, a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of the people. For the innkeeper, ale was not just a product, it was the lifeblood of their business, a crucial source of revenue and sustenance for the community. The thought of a frozen barrel of ale was a nightmare. When ale freezes, the water separates from the alcohol, and the pressure can cause the wooden barrels to burst, a financial and practical disaster. To prevent this, innkeepers had to be constantly vigilant. They would often move barrels from the cold storage cellar to a warmer part of the tavern, close to the fire but not so close as to spoil it. In especially severe cold, they would wrap the barrels in heavy woolen blankets or animal hides, a desperate measure to keep the precious liquid from turning into an unusable block of ice. The care of the ale was a full-time job, and the innkeeper's diligence was a direct measure of their tavern's ability to survive the winter. The loss of a single barrel could mean a week's wages, and the loss of a whole batch could spell financial ruin, a chilling reality that was as constant a threat as the freezing temperatures outside. The physical process of protecting the ale was a constant battle. The innkeeper would spend their days checking on the barrels, tapping them with a mallet to listen for the telltale sound of ice. The movement of the heavy barrels was a back-breaking chore, a testament to the lengths they would go to protect their livelihood. The ale, a crucial source of calories and hydration, was too important to lose. The communal drinking of ale was a social event, but the preservation of that ale was a matter of survival. The innkeeper's vigilance ensured that the flow of this vital liquid would not cease, a quiet and unsung act of heroism that kept the community well and fed through the long, dark winter. The sight of an innkeeper carefully wrapping a barrel in a thick hide was a common one, a small act of defiance against the overwhelming power of the cold. This constant struggle with the cold was a defining feature of the innkeeper's winter. The ale, their most valuable commodity, was a delicate and fragile thing. The barrels, often stored in a damp cellar, were susceptible to the cold, and the innkeeper's daily routine was dictated by the need to protect them. The sound of a mallet tapping against a wooden barrel was a common one, a low, rhythmic beat that was a testament to the innkeeper's diligence. The fear of a frozen barrel was a constant anxiety, a chilling reality that could at any moment turn their livelihood into a financial disaster. The innkeeper's work, a quiet and constant battle against the cold, was a crucial part of the community's winter survival. The ability to provide a constant supply of ale was a testament to their resilience and their ingenuity. The economic and social ramifications of a frozen batch of ale were immense. The tavern would not only lose its primary source of income, but also its role as a social and nutritional hub. Ale was not just a drink, it was a staple of the medieval diet, providing essential calories and a safer alternative to often contaminated well water. Without it, the community would face not only a loss of social gathering, but also a potential health crisis. The innkeeper, in their quiet battle against the cold, was not just protecting their business, they were safeguarding the well-being of the entire village. The sight of them diligently wrapping a barrel in a thick hide was a small, quiet act of heroism, a testament to the fact that the survival of the community was inextricably linked to the survival of the tavern. In the unforgiving cold of winter, The tavern was more than just a place to drink. For some, it was a last chance at survival. The truly destitute, those without a home or family, would often seek refuge in the tavern for a night. An innkeeper, moved by a rare moment of charity or simply looking to make a few extra coins, might allow a poor traveler to sleep on the straw-covered floor near the fire. For these individuals, a night in the tavern was a desperate gamble. The cost of a small measure of ale or a quick chore might be their only chance to escape the freezing cold of the streets. This grim reality highlighted the tavern's role as a place of last resort, a fragile and often temporary barrier between a person and a slow frozen death. The warmth of the fire, the smell of food, and the presence of other people offered a brief, precious moment of humanity, a temporary reprieve from the brutal indifference of the winter world. The scene was a somber and poignant one. A gaunt, shivering figure would enter the tavern, their face etched with the ravages of cold and hunger. They would approach the innkeeper with a pleading look, and a quiet, hurried negotiation would take place. The promise of a small coin or a day's labor would often secure them a space on the floor, a small patch of warmth in a brutal world. The sight of these individuals huddled on the floor, their faces illuminated by the flickering firelight, was a stark reminder of the social inequalities of the time. The tavern, a place of conviviality for the well-to-do, was a place of last resort for the poor, a final, desperate act of survival in the face of a cold and uncaring world. The fragile barrier of the tavern's walls was the only thing standing between them and certain death, a grim reality that was a constant presence throughout the winter season. The tavern's role as a place of last resort was a testament to the brutal realities of medieval life. For the destitute, the tavern offered a flicker of hope, a fragile promise of warmth and safety. The negotiation with the innkeeper was a moment of immense tension, a plea for a temporary reprieve from the harsh realities of the outside world. The floor of the tavern, covered in straw and filth, was a haven, a soft, warm place in a world of hard, cold earth. The sight of these individuals, huddled together for warmth, was a grim reminder of the social hierarchies and the brutal indifference of a world that had no place for them. The tavern on these nights was not just a place of conviviality, but a place of desperate hope, a fragile barrier between a person and a slow, frozen death. The presence of the destitute in the tavern was a source of discomfort for the more affluent patrons, a grim reminder of their own precarious existence. The innkeeper's decision to allow them shelter was often a balancing act between compassion and pragmatism. A reputation for charity could attract more customers, but too many destitute individuals could drive away the paying clientele. The tavern on these nights was a microcosm of medieval society, a place where the social hierarchies were on full display, and where the struggle for survival was a constant, visible presence. The warmth of the fire, a shared resource, was a powerful symbol of the tavern's role as a place of both conviviality and desperate hope, a fragile barrier between life and death in a cold and unforgiving world. In a world without police forces, the responsibility for local security fell to the village watch or militia. In winter, their patrols were more dangerous and less frequent, and the tavern became their unofficial headquarters. The watch would huddle around the fire, their armor clanking and their breath visible in the cold air, drinking ale and planning their patrols. The tavern was not just a place of rest, it was a strategic center, a place where information was exchanged and defenses were organized. The presence of these armed men in the tavern was a reassuring sight for the locals, a sign that even in the deepest, coldest months, the village was not left completely undefended against bandits, wild animals, or other threats. Their presence also served to keep order within the tavern itself, as their authority often discouraged the rowdier elements from getting too out of hand. The watch's arrival was a ritual of the winter night. Their heavy boots would stomp through the door, shaking the floorboards, and they would move directly to the hearth, their cloaks shedding a fine dust of snow. Their presence added a layer of authority to the tavern's atmosphere, and their conversation, a mix of local gossip and military talk, was a source of news for the patrons. The tavern on these nights was transformed from a simple drinking hole into a command center. The presence of these armed men, their weapons glinting in the firelight, was a powerful symbol of the village's resilience, a reminder that even in the face of the overwhelming power of winter, they were not defenseless. The tavern was a place where both the social and the physical defenses of the community were organized, a crucial part of the village's winter survival strategy. The atmosphere shifted the moment the watch entered. The boisterous laughter would quiet down, replaced by a respectful hush as the armed men made their way to the fire. Their conversation, a mix of local gossip and serious military talk, was a source of news for the patrons. They would discuss the state of the roads, the sightings of wolves or other wild animals, and any strange faces that had been seen in the village. This information was vital for the community's survival, and the tavern became a place where this information was disseminated. The watch's presence was a dual function. They not only protected the village from outside threats, but they also maintained order within the tavern itself. Their authority was absolute, and their presence was a silent warning to anyone who might consider starting a fight or causing trouble. In this way, the tavern was a place of both conviviality and stern, militaristic order, a delicate balance that was a crucial part of the village's winter survival. The tavern on these nights was not just a place of warmth and ale, but a command center, a place where the village's physical and social defenses were organized and maintained. The tavern's role as the headquarters for the watch was a direct consequence of the dangers of the winter season. The watch's patrols, often on foot, were treacherous in the deep snow and ice. The tavern provided a place for them to warm up, share vital intelligence, and plan their routes. Their presence in the tavern was a physical and psychological deterrent to potential criminals and a source of comfort for the villagers. The clanking of their armor, the sight of their weapons, and their serious conversations were a constant reminder that the village was not a soft target. The tavern, on these nights, was a place where the lines between civilian life and military order were blurred, a testament to the harsh realities of medieval life. It was a place where the survival of the community was a constant, visible presence. The thick stone walls of the tavern, while imposing, were a poor defense against the drafts that snaked through every crack and crevice. To combat this relentless cold, innkeepers would hang heavy woolen or leather tapestries over doorways and unglazed windows. These large, thick cloths were not just for decoration, they were a vital piece of insulation, a physical barrier against the biting wind. The tapestries trapped what little heat was generated by the fire and created a sense of warmth and enclosure in the cavernous, stone-walled room. The rustling of the heavy curtains as a draft blew through was a constant reminder of the cold outside, and a testament to the innkeeper's ingenuity in the face of the unforgiving elements. The textiles provided a crucial, albeit humble layer of defense, a simple and effective way of making the tavern feel more like a refuge and less like an exposed stone box. The sight and feel of these tapestries were an important part of the tavern experience. They were often rough-hewn, crudely woven from thick wool or made from tanned hides, their weight and texture a comforting presence against the cold stone walls. They served not just as a physical barrier, but a psychological one, creating a feeling of intimacy and safety. The muted colors and simple designs of the tapestries were a stark contrast to the lively, chaotic scene in the tavern. The act of hanging these tapestries was a ritual of survival, a yearly preparation for the long, cold season. They were a testament to the innkeeper's understanding of their environment, a practical and effective way of turning a cold, drafty building into a warm and welcoming haven. The rustling of the curtains was a constant, low murmur, a sound that defined the winter tavern. The tapestries were a physical embodiment of the tavern's struggle against the cold. The heavy woolen cloths, crudely woven from the wool of local sheep, were a testament to the village's resilience. The leather hides, often from local cattle, were a tangible reminder of the resources that the village had to survive. The tapestries were not just hung, they were draped, carefully positioned to block the drafts that snaked through the cracks in the stone walls. The rustling of the curtains, a constant low murmur, was a reminder of the cold that lay just beyond the walls. The sight of these tapestries, their rough texture and muted colors, was a comforting presence, a visual symbol of the tavern's ability to withstand the winter. They were a crucial part of the tavern's atmosphere, a physical and psychological barrier against the brutal realities of the winter world. The ritual of hanging the tapestries was a serious, almost sacred act. The innkeeper and their family would spend an entire day preparing the tavern for the coming winter, carefully tacking the heavy cloths over every opening. The process was a physical and psychological preparation for the long, dark season, a defiant act against the cold. The tapestries once hung transformed the tavern from a cold, drafty hall into a cozy, intimate space. The sound of the wind, once a howling menace, was now a muffled murmur, a constant reminder of the cold that lay just beyond the walls. The tapestries were a crucial part of the tavern's defenses, a simple but effective way of making the tavern a true haven, a place of warmth and safety in a cold and unforgiving world. The medieval tavern, often built from a mixture of wattle and daub, thatch, and rough-hewn timber, was a physically unstable environment in winter. The wood, often unseasoned, would absorb the dampness from the air and expand and contract with the freezing and thawing cycles. This constant movement created new gaps and cracks in the walls, allowing more drafts to enter. The wood would also become soft and prone to rot, weakening the structure over time. This meant that the tavern was a constant work in progress, a building that was slowly but surely being assaulted by the elements, a physical manifestation of the brutal reality of winter. A sudden, heavy snowfall could put immense pressure on a weakened roof, and a particularly harsh winter could lead to a slow, structural collapse, a very real danger that both patrons and owners had to live with. The sound of the tavern in winter was a symphony of creaks and groans, as the wood of the walls and ceiling protested against the cold. The innkeeper would spend their days patching cracks with fresh wattle and daub, a futile effort against the relentless power of the freezing temperatures. The fear of a roof collapse, especially under a heavy blanket of snow, was a constant, low-grade anxiety for everyone in the tavern. The very building that provided shelter was also a source of danger, a testament to the precarious nature of medieval life. The tavern was a living, breathing thing, a structure that was slowly but surely being worn down by the elements. The apathetic creaking of the wood and the constant shifting of the walls were a physical reminder of the brutal reality of winter, a reality that could, at any moment, bring the whole structure crashing down. The structural decay of the tavern was a subtle but relentless force. Each night, as the cold deepened, the unseasoned wood would freeze, and with each thaw, it would swell, creating new fissures and weakening old joints. The very walls that provided shelter were slowly but surely being torn apart by the elements. The innkeeper's daily routine was a constant battle against this decay. They would mix fresh mud and straw to fill the cracks, a desperate and often temporary fix. The patrons, too, were aware of the danger. A sudden loud crack from the ceiling would send a shiver of fear through the room, a brief, silent moment of shared anxiety. The tavern was a place of warmth and community, but it was also a building that was slowly dying, a physical manifestation of the brutal, unforgiving nature of the winter world. The groaning of the wood, the creaking of the floorboards, and the sighing of the wind through the cracks were a constant, low-grade soundscape of fear and resilience. The smell of a medieval tavern in winter was not just a simple odor, it was a complex and powerful sensory experience, a unique perfume of survival. It was a heavy mix of wood smoke, sweat, and stale ale, all blended with the earthy smell of damp wool, mud, and a simmering cauldron of pottage. This powerful combination was not a pleasant smell, but it was a comforting one, a smell that meant warmth, safety, and community. It was a smell that clung to the clothes and hair of the patrons, a physical reminder of the time spent inside. The aromatic assault was a defining feature of the medieval tavern, a sensory memory that was inextricably linked to the struggle for survival against the cold. The layers of scent told a story of the day. The smokiness of the morning fire, the rich smell of cooked food at midday, and the heavy, sweet scent of spilled ale as the night wore on. It was a smell that defined the space and the season. The very air in the tavern was a character in itself, thick and heavy with the combined smells of 100 lives. It was an olfactory tapestry woven from the individual sense of the people and the building itself. The smell was a form of communication, a way of understanding the state of the tavern and the lives within it. A strong smell of wood smoke meant the fire was burning well. The rich, meaty smell of pottage meant a good meal was to be had. The heavy, fermented smell of ale was a sign of a good night's drinking. The scent was a constant presence, a powerful and visceral reminder of the struggle for survival against the cold. It was a smell that defined the space, a powerful and unique fragrance that was a constant and comforting presence throughout the long, dark winter. The smell was a physical manifestation of the tavern's life. The smokiness of the air was a comforting presence, a sign that the fire was burning and the cold was being held at bay. The rich, meaty smell of the pottage was a promise of a good meal, a vital source of calories and warmth. The heavy, fermented smell of the ale was a sign of a good night's drinking, a social event that was a crucial part of the community's winter survival. The smell was not just a simple odor, it was a sensory memory, a powerful and visceral reminder of the struggle for survival against the cold. It was a smell that defined the space and the season, a unique and powerful fragrance that was a constant and comforting presence throughout the long, dark winter. The aroma of the tavern was a living, breathing thing, a physical embodiment of the tavern's life and the community's resilience. So the medieval English tavern was not the cozy, idealized place we see in movies. It was a place of survival, a place of danger, and a place of community built on a foundation of filth and vice. The medieval patrons of these taverns were not seeking a gourmet meal or a finely crafted beer. They were seeking warmth, safety, and a brief respite from the relentless cold and brutal reality of their daily lives. They were seeking a place where they could feel human, even if it was just for a few hours. The tavern was a microcosm of medieval life, harsh, dangerous, and utterly captivating. Don't miss our next video where we uncover another brutal truth of medieval life. If you want to see more content like this, please smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us to continue bringing you the real stories of history, not the fairy tales.